Swamiji, you are muted.
Could not hear anything. Okay. So we have done in the beginning the first introduction to the Kashmiri philosophy before we enter into this specific text of Siva Sutra. So today we will do the second leg of the introduction to have a better entry into it. It's a very interesting school in the sense, even though it is, this is also Advaita Vedanta. It's also non-dualistic. Even as it's non-dualistic, this is not Kevaladitya. It's not the monistic non-dualism like that of Sankaracharya. So there are certain interesting aspects to it. Like earlier, we had a discussion on the Vishishtadvaita Vada of Ramanujacharya. If you keep that in your mind, it will become easy for you to grasp the message of the Kashmiri Saivism. You can call it Ishvara Dvaitavada or Shiva Dvaitavada. So it is Advaitavada, but Shiva or Ishvara is at the center of it. So there is no concept of overwhelming a power of Maya explaining what is happening, and Brahman is kind of allowed to be kept as somebody who is absolutely nothing to do with it. So that Niskriya, Nischala, Achala, Nirguna, Nirakara, Brahman remains not touched by anything, and because of Maya, everything kind of appears, and it's in the eyes of us human beings that all these things play out. There, in a very simple way to explain it to you, they would say that no, this is not playing out on his own, but there they would say that this Nirvikara Nirguna Brahman with Maya Upadhi, wearing the hat of Maya, he becomes Ishvara. Why he wears it? Then there are different kinds of explanations in Advaita Vedanta. Why that happens? Some people say no, it never happens. It just appears in our eyes. Or they will say that, okay, in order to explain to us so that we can do sadhana and stuff like that. And there are different schools of thought as to how that happens. Kashmiri Saivism, even though there are minor variations in the way this is explained, broadly they are saying that don't question the unthinkable, independent capacity of the Supreme Self, God Himself, to manifest the way He wants, to indulge in the play. It's very, very similar to what Thakura Ramakrishna used to say. That's why I picked up this text. So this is kind of a very interesting explanation where God is the magician and he's doing it of his own will. There is nobody to tell him. He's not limited by any laws. And what are the conceptual tools they use to give us this philosophy, which is pretty fascinating from a sadhana point of view? Because there is no threat to your devotion. Because unlike in Advaita Vedanta, they will say that God is also an illusion, it's also a mental construct, and you go beyond that. I mean, ultimate liberation is when there is no God and there is no jiva and everything. Kashmiri Saivism will also say the same thing. But remember, Ishvara remains at the center of it. So the ultimate reality in Advaita Vedanta is that Nirvikara Brahman, which is kind of stays beyond the Ishvara. And here, no, everything starts and ends with Ishvara, the supreme being, which is God. So, in the last, discussion, we had sort of touched upon a few key ideas that how Siva Sutras were revealed to. We will do that in more detail, and that the ultimate reality is Prakasha Rupa, eternal light without which nothing can appear. And there is something called Vimarsha Shakti, which is Shiva Swabhava. It's like his own self-awareness. He's seeing himself. So aham idam, I am seeing this. When we say the idam is different from me, but he's saying that no, it's non-relational, is consciousness observing itself. So that is saying that akritam, so that is the most important, that akritama aham iti. So I am not made by anyone. There's nothing which is beyond me. It is Puranam, without which Prakasa will not be different from Jada. So its first thing is that is Sambit Rupa, it's consciousness. And in case of Vedanta, we have an idea called, the Maya, that everything manifests, and they will say, no, that is making your Param Brahma in a way helpless because he cannot create. You are withdrawing that power from him, and you are creating an idea of Maya because of which he becomes Ishvara. You're saying that your Param Brahma is Pangu, is kind of a handicapped person, is physically challenged or intellectually challenged or emotionally. So why can't he do it? Our Shiva can't do anything. So Shiva is Swatantra. That is the idea they bring in. Okay. So the whole manifestation of the universe is universal consciousness cannot create if it is Jada, therefore it is Chaitanya. And the creativity is the essence of the supreme reality. Okay, so I and this samsara and God, they are two aspects of one unified undivided reality, and how it appears divided, that we will discuss. So you have prakasha is I, vimarsha is that, this, and prakasa's consciousness of itself. That is what he's mentioning. What is vimarsha is prakasa's consciousness of itself. The consciousness is becoming conscious of itself. And there is an idea of Swatantra is complete autonomy and independence. He is not subject to any limitations or restrictions. That is the most critical idea. Okay. So we were introduced to a few words there. What is Chiti? What is Paravak? So it has infinite powers. So Chiti is the power of self-revelation. He appears, changeless principle. A lot of things are changing. Lord Shiva doesn't change. Okay, so then you have the great fascination of a lot of scientists with the idea of the Nataraja. He's standing, is dynamic, it's static, it's a beautiful thing to make sense of it. So he's the principle of energy as well as particle, as a both things. That's why in the CERN Center for the Research, they have the Nataraja established there because they were fascinated by the insight in that particular very symbolic image of the divine or the supreme reality. And then you have Chida, the Chiti thing, then Ananda and Icha and Jnana and Kriya. These are all aspects, and we'll go into it. Now, the first principle you have to understand is that this is also Advaitavada. Shiva Advaita, but nevertheless, this is also Advaitavada. And so the question which will strike you is that we have a samsara, we have a Jagat. So how Shiva or God, a supreme self, or the supreme being, creates this world? Where does he get the material? They are giving you the same story which Advaita Vedanta gives or Sankaracharya mentions, the Upanishads give, that is most like Jatha Urnanavihi. It's like a spider. It doesn't require any external material cause. Like the spider weaves the net. It weaves the net using its own saliva. So it's avinna nimitto upadana karana. That's what is used prolifically in Advaita Vedanta. Here they say nirupadana sansara avittau eva tanvate jagat chitram namaha tasmai kalaslaghaya shuline. This is a prayer to Lord Shiva. Nirupadana sansara abhittau eva. Bhitti, it's like a wall. There's a foundation on which you create it. You want to paint, you need a canvas. The sansara is a picture, fine, we agree with you. Where is the canvas? No, it's not different from him. He is sarva adhisthana, and there is no material cause. He himself creates it in himself. Tanvate, he expands it. Jagat chitram, this whole manifest reality. Namaha tasmai, I bow to thee. Kalaslaghaya shuline, is bowing down to him with this innumerable, unlimited creative power. And then we will go into the specific Shaktis that he has. So, mostly, these are the 5 Shaktis that are mentioned. What are these? One is Chit Shakti, which is Prakasha Rupata Chit Shakti. What is Chit Shakti? Anybody asks? Here, Prakasha Rupata, that is Chit Shakti. And then this is different from Jnana Shakti. Chit, Chitti, that absolute domain of consciousness. Jnana is a little more specific. So then what you say, Ananda Sakti is Swatyantriam Ananda Sakti. You just imagine, if we are kept in a cage, are we happy? So ananda or bliss has to be a state of complete freedom. Anybody asks you, anyone asks you, why, for example, democracy can naturally survive in a very difficult socio-economic context like India, perhaps I would say the root cause of it is that philosophical opening that ultimately all human beings are aspiring for bliss, which is a state of complete freedom. Because without freedom, you cannot have ananda. Pleasure is different. Sense pleasure is different. You can be kept in a jail, and then I'll show you a good film, I'll give you good food. You may experience sense pleasure, but you can't be ultimately blissful unless you fulfill that primary condition of freedom. That is Ananda Sakti. Therefore, what is interesting there? Swatantira Rupam. Is that Ananda Rupa because kind of, he's not in any way under any kind of limitations. Second, third one is Ichha Sakti. Tat Chamatkara Sakti. What is that Ichha Sakti? He's like a magician. He can turn out anything out of nothing. This whole sansara, is it Sunyavada? Is it Arambhavada like the Nyayayikas? Is it Sunyavada like the Buddhists? No. This is very interesting. They're saying that this whole sansara is hiding in Lord Shiva as potency. Advaita Vedanta says the same thing, that the Karana Sarira is Ishvara, comparable to the deep sleep state of the jiva, who in his deep sleep, his ahankara, his buddhi, and everything that we experience when we wake up was in a sleep state. It's like you fold your computer down, you put it to the sleep state. When you open it, all the windows open again. That is the causal state. In Mahapralaya, there is only the Ishvara, there is nothing else. Okay? Now, so you have Ananda Sakti, then Ichha Sakti, Chamatkara Sakti. And then what? How does he does Chamatkara? He has to have wisdom to do it. He has to have understanding. He has to have some reality that he's being able to capture. And that is called Jnana Sakti, Amar Sakatmakata. So that particular reflectivity, the ability to contemplate, reflect, that abounds in him is not Jada, Chaitanya. So Jnana Sakti is there. And then with Jnana, what does he do? He knows this whole sansara, he's Sarvasaki, he knows everything, guides us. And then there is Kriya Sakti, Sarvakara Yogitvam. This is the most beautiful part of it. Sarva Akara Yogitvam. He can take any form as he pleases. What does it mean? Because the Kashmiri Saiva Advaitavadi has to explain the non dualists, has to explain the diversity in this whole universe, where we have studied that periodic table where you have 108 elements and new elements are also being invented, and not invented but discovered. New particles, subatomic particles are being discovered. So, they are limitless things are possible, and they are diagnosed as different from each other. We make sense of them as very unique in themselves, but ultimately all of them have unfolded out of one supreme reality, which is self conscious in Kashmiri Saivism. It's not only self conscious, it has the power to manifest as it wills with its wisdom and its Kriya Sakti, Sarvakara Yogitvam. It can take any form, because we cannot imagine of any form which can come out of nothing. So it has to come from Ishvara. And that which was hiding in him as avinna appears now as vinna. That is what is Srishti and Sansara. Will go into it. So this Paramashiva, what are the three key powers he has? One is Swatantriya. Now you look at Lord Shiva when he's sitting, is meditating. What do you see? He has these three eyes. You have that Bhalanetra, the third eye, and you have the left eye and the right eye. The Swatantriya Sakti, that independent, intuitive, willful, whatever he wants, he can. That freedom is symbolized by his third eye. Then you have the Pramana Sakti, is the right eye. He has to know. He's a Pramata, right? He'll know, he'll observe things. And then what will he observe? Who has created this? He himself has created it. Therefore, the Prameya Sakti is left eye. Just look at it. I know this. All of this is in one. I and idam. I know this. So this whole process of knowing and I and this is a part of this one undivided reality. In order to make us understand, we are dividing it into three Saktis of Paramashiva. And then, what are these avasthas? What are the phases? What are the states that he enters or he appears to enter into? So one is his paravastha, which is very comparable to the Karana Sarira, the Ishvara, Karanavastha in Advaita Vedanta. Paravastha, that's called Paravastha, the ultimate reality. What is it? That Karana is in a causal form. What are the words they're using? Remember that the Kashmiri Saivism has a very important place given to Sakti, or that feminine divinity, which is his energy. So it's called Mahamaya, Paramaya, Kundalini, Nitya, and Karana. These are a set of words. The tricky thing about Kashmiri Saivism and this philosophy is that they have too many technical words, which kind of sometimes makes people a little perturbed and confused about this philosophy. It's not like Advaita Vedanta. In simple terms, it's very simple. But if you get into it, there's so many technical jargon called prakriyas. How do you explain it? So they will have so many technical jargon, such complexity. So a lot of people don't know get into it. They find Vaishnava philosophy much easier. Why? Yeah, there's a God, you do devotion, he creates it out of his. They just introduce a one word, is all powerful. Now, Kashmiri Saivism more or less does the same thing, but with a philosophical overload of a lot of jargon, a lot of concepts, a lot of technicalities. Because there were a few very powerful commentators on the foundational texts, and their ideas were kind of further worked on, further analyzed, commented upon, and therefore they have a gamut of words and ideas. Now, so one is that Karana Sarira, which you call Mahamaya, Paramaya, Kundalini, Nitya, and Karana. Then there is something called Sukshmavastha, which in Advaita Vedanta is the Vyasti level or the physical, the individual level, micro level, macrocosm is called Taijasa in a dream state. They call it Karya, Anitya, and Maya. So they have three words. Sukshma Avastha of the same Paramashiva. It takes the form of Karya. First thing, it's a form. Sukshma and Stula both are Karya. Karana is that Mahamaya, Paramaya, Kundalini. That is Karana Rupa, causal form. These are both effects. So Sukshma Avastha, similarly, in Advaita Vedanta, the Karana Avastha or the Pragya is the adhisthana or the cause of what? Sukshma Sarira and Sthula Sarira. The causal form, the database, is in sleep mode. It's in Vijavastha or you're in seed form, in deep sleep. When you are in dream state and seeing dreams, that's one manifestation of it. That is a Sukshma Sarira that you see if you look at yourself. What is the Sukshma Sarira made of that we have studied? The Sukshma Sarira is you have Pancha Jnana Indriyas and the Karma Indriyas and Pancha Pranas and you have Mana and Buddhi in together. The Sukshma Sarira, which travels after our death. And then you have the Sthula Sarira, the physical Pancha Bhutatmaka Sarira, Annamaya Kosha. So all these, like for example, the four kosas, except for the Anandamaya Kosha, you can say the Anandamaya Kosha is kind of the substratum of the other four four koshas, chatur koshas below that. So sthula sarira is what? Karya. That means it's also an effect. It cannot be permanent. Anything karya cannot be permanent. So it's anitya and it's called maya. Okay. So it's called maya is that sukshma thing, and anitya is trigunatmika prakriti, sattva, tamas, and rajas. It's prakriti. Then the question you will ask me is, okay, can you kindly explain to me what is Maya Swarupa in the school of philosophy? We're just still in the introductory state. So I'll just be touching upon a few key ideas they have thrown open for discussion. So he says, what is that Maya, to be very simple, Maya Swarupa is that it is Swatyantra Sakti itself is called Maya. He can do anything. That complete ability, unbridled, unshackled, free from all limitations, unrestricted, willful ability of the God to do whatever he wants, but he shall not do it. There is a pattern. He doesn't, you remember that famous statement of Einstein. I can't presume that God was playing dice. No, there's a logic to why this whole creation is. There is science behind it. Otherwise, if God can do anything, what will scientists do? Everything will go for a toss. Nothing will be predictable. So, therefore, whatever happens, happens for a cause. We have to understand that. That's why we're interested in the spirituality. So, what Swatantra Sakti itself is Maya, and that Tattva Khyati Maya Prapancha. So, when we are not being able to understand how that thing happens, then we see samsara as the only reality. So Maya is that Swatantra Sakti by which Siva, so there's a beautiful word. You remember in Bhagavad Gita when we were doing this, there was a word called apannava, a kind of concealment. It hides itself. It plays hide and seek with us. So Bhagavan, the most interesting thing is that Maya Sakti is like that gameful Leela through which he hides his Swarupa and he appears as if he's limited and through this whole phenomenal reality. Then we can only touch the phenomenal reality. We have to do a lot of meditation, a lot of bhakti to see and understand and reunite with the Swarupa of all this. Because, like in Vedanta, in Sivadvaita or Kashmir Saivism, Jiva Brahmaiva Naparaha. There is no difference. Sankaracharya or these people, more or less the same. But how Shiva now appears as Vishwa or as Sansara or as this whole phenomenal cosmos, there is a lot of thing where we have to do a lot of research, look at the very fine details of Kashmiri Saivism. Maya is the Swatantra Sakti by which Shiva is not visible. He becomes invisible. There is this Maya, we have studied these Puranas, where in Kenopanishad, there is the Jaksha, the angelic presence who comes, and there's a fight between Agni and Vayu as to who is greater. Indra is standing there, the king of these devatas. And the Jaksha comes and says, "Oh, really? What's your name? I'm Agni. What can you do? I can burn down this whole universe." Really? He puts a speck of dry grass in front of him, says, "Can you burn this up? I want to see." And he cannot. Then he asks the other person, "Who are you?" He says, "I'm Vayu." "And what can you do?" "I can sway anything away." "Am I wish?" "Oh, really?" Then he puts that blade of grass before him. Dry grass. He says, "Okay. Can you blow it away?" And he cannot. Then he laughs, ignores Indra, who's full of ego, and he walks away. Where does he go? He just vanishes. When he manifests, he doesn't tell who is him, who is he. And then he vanishes, and then they see Ma Durga, and then says, "Oh, Ma Durga is coming. Let's ask her." And there's very great symbolism in it. That to know the Paramas Tattva, even Kenopanishad, this kind of showing the path, it has to be through a conversation with the Sakti, propitiation, respect, love for the divine manifesting capacity or the power of that Supreme Self Lord. And that's what, if you will talk to the Vaishnavas in Vrindavan, they don't say Krishna, Krishna, they say Radhe, Radhe. So wherever you go, there's predominance of the Sakti worship in different parts. I mean, you look at whole of North India, they're largely Saivites, and you'll see that enormous amount of presence of the Divine Mother in most of the villages. So that particular thing is very critical. So Maya is the Swatantra Sakti by which Shiva is not visible. So that particular mysterious power is what is the Swarupa of Maya in very layman's language. Now you will ask, so 4 types we studied. So Maya Tattva is like, what is Swatantri or Vimarsha Sakti? Then you have Mahamaya, Maya, and a Prakriti. That is what we just did it. And then when we go down, we'll do a further more about it. So once we know this whole Maya, then the question would be, what are the powers of Lord Shiva? The Shaktis that you already studied, that he has primarily three Shaktis, right? So you have the five: Chit Shakti, Ananda Shakti, Ichha Shakti, Jnana Shakti, and Kriya Shakti. A little more contemplation on that before we move forward. So Chit Shakti is Prakasasya Ananya Urmaka Vimarshaha Ahamiti. That is Prakasa. I am this I. Aham iti pratiyate. It appears, it's me. So that particular thing is Shakti. What is Ananda Shakti is Swatyantri Ananda Shakti. So it's as I mentioned, that Anand is essentially that autonomy, that freedom that is not subjected to any kind of limitation. And then Ichha Shakti is what? That Chamatkara Shakti, Jnana Shakti that we have studied. Now, there's a long detail about it, and there are too many technical words to explain what are the powers of Shiva, but I just don't want to get into it. Just remember that Atma or the Paramashiva, then will have these two aspects, Aham and Idam. From the Idam, this, I and this. I is the Lord of the universe, and this is the whole universe. And this whole universe is not outside of the Lord. It is inside the Lord, which has become external through a process of manifestation, which we call Srishti. And how that happens, how that unfolds, why that unfolds, is the subject matter in this particular philosophy. So he's saying Prakaseka Sariraha. So he is himself manifesting himself as the whole universe. And about Maya, we have sort of had a few, uh, you know, uh, discussions on about the Maya. There is a word called Panchakanchuka in Kashmir Saivism. Maya, you know what is Kanchuka? Kanchuka can be like a blouse, it can be like the skin of the snake, it can be like a cover, it could be like a veneer, it could be like a dress or a gown. Broadly, this is like Upadhi. It's superimposition of name and form. These are upadhis. Like Brahman becomes Ishwar with Maya upadhi, with Abhidya upadhi, it becomes Jiva in Advaita Vedanta. So this Maya also has a few manifest forms. The same thing has a few manifest forms. And what are these? Like Panchakosha you have in our Advaita Vedanta. These are called Kala, Vidya, Raga, Kala, Niyati. So this is one interesting thing that you have to understand. So each of these particular things, so what is Kala and what is Kala, we'll discuss that as we are moving forward. So Kala, what Panchakanchuka, what does it, why Maya needs these aspects? One, you are saying Maya is the magical power of Lord Shiva or Brahman or Narayana or whatever you mentioned. Then you were saying that it has five forms or five aspects. Then please explain to us what these five aspects are imagined for or conceptualized for, and what Maya achieves. What do we get out of it? Why do we need five aspects of Maya? Why? I mean, this philosophy has to conceptualize, that is explained. One is that Kala, when it is in the form of Kala, it creates for itself a very special domain of power. You have the state government, then you have five departments. All are state government only. They will write that particular government of India, then you have external affairs, you have defense, and you have divisions. But they are all under the president of India, so to say. Similarly, you have Kala gives Maya Sarvakartitva. It has all pervading agency. Sarvakartitva. Beyond that, nothing. That Maya, you see. And then there is something called Vidya. There's another form. Remember, this is same Maya. It becomes Sarvakartu, so agency, all powerful agency. That is one aspect of it, Kala. And then it becomes Vidya when it requires omniscience. It knows everything. Sarvajnatva. That aspect is explained by that word. Another, it's like you call it a liver, you call it a form, you call it a state, you call it whatever you want. But that particular thing, another upadhi, that it manifests as supreme knowledge, it manifests is that wisdom through which it's able to do anything, or God is able to do anything. In Agatana Ghatana Patiyasi, as they say in Vedanta, they'll attribute it to Maya because there is no agents in Param Brahman. But in Saiva Advaita, the interesting aspect of it is that the Sarvajnatva, Sarvakartitva, everything is attributed to the Supreme Lord. It doesn't have to be attributed to something where he's sitting tight. Why so? Why you are innovated? Claim your powers. That is what Siva Advaita Vadi will tell Lord. You claim it's all your power. Where is Maya without you? It's all power. Therefore, Sarvajnatva. And then Raga. And what is that? Purnatva. Nothing is divided there. Nothing is limited. Nothing is unfulfilled. It's integral, comprehensive. It's Purna. And then Kala. Kala, what is that? So Maya creates Sukshma Sarira, Stula Sarira, all that it creates, right? They are all Anityas. The physical universe, the subtle universe, all these are Anitya because at Pralaya they'll go. Will Maya go? No. That is Nitya. Therefore, there is another aspect of Maya. It's called Nityatva, that Kala. It gives that permanence. It's eternity. The principle of eternity is expressed by the word Kala, time. This time is the timeless time. This is the mother of all time. That Mahakala has no beginning and no end. Khanda Kala has a beginning and an end. We call it, okay, see this, see that, this millennia, that millennia. They have a beginning and an end. Per se, imagine about that meta time where there's no calendar, there's no beginning and no end. That is the Kala, Nityatva. And then it has to be all pervading. Is there going to be a domain where Maya will be active, a domain where it's not? Nothing like that. So the word is Niyati, Sarva Vyapakatvam. It's all pervading. That is the most beautiful aspect of it. Now, this is how this interesting thing is that now you will have a few more questions. Okay, God creates this samsara. Please tell me then, what is this Jagat? What is this world and how is it created? He's saying, look here. Shankaracharya will say, Brahma Satya Jagana Mithya. This is an appearance, like a snake appears on a rope. This is just an appearance, it's not real. The Siva Advaita expert, exponent, will tell you, no, you don't have to say it's an illusion. We can accept this as real, provided you agree with one thing. And what is that? This was all hidden in Lord Shiva, the Supreme Being, and all this has manifested because of his own game, and he can withdraw everything in himself. Sounds more interesting. You feel more reassured because there is a Lord at the end of everything. There's nothing beyond it. He is not subjected to any mysterious laws because of which all this appears and disappears. End of the day, you can call it's a theistic Vedanta because God is at the center of this whole Vedanta philosophy. This particular Vedanta, the Kashmir Saivism, you can say that this is theistic, like Ramanujacharya. He's theistic. Of course, the Siva Dvaitavada is not called Vedanta because they have gone much beyond and they have taken concept from different other sources. They are not quoting from the Upanishads all the time. Little, I mean, it's traditional at the same time. It's a little. There's an element of heterodoxy. They have, sort of infused their philosophy with a bit of freshness from different other conceptual tools, which some of them have created, some of them have borrowed from other schools. So, what is the Jagat Tattva? If you ask, they'll say that no. His sansara is not mithya, my dear friend. He's saying what? Swasakti prachaya asya vishwam. His own hidden power, which he has channeled into this whole universe. He has set it free. He has allowed it to manifest. And that's how appears as the Vishwa, as the Sansara. It's an expansion of his hidden, unimaginable, unlimited Ichha Sakti, Kriya Sakti, and Jnana Sakti. That has manifested as Sansara. Why should it be a lie? There's no problem with it. And so, what do they say? Shivasya Vishwam Swasaktimayam. This Vishwa is Swasakti, Shiva Saktimayam. And therefore is Lord Shiva and Lord Parvati, it's Shiva and Shakti. Their Leela, this whole game, is an unfolding reality of their game. So there are Siva Sutra, it will come. In the third chapter, we'll look at it, 30th verse. So all these will come. Jnanadrite Nartha Satta Jnanarupam Tatu Jagat. All this will come when we are going, this is Siva Sutra Vimarshini as we move forward. So same Jagat. So you have three states: Srishti, Sthiti, and Laya. Creation, manifestation, whatever is going on, the phenomenal reality, and everything comes to an end. Pralaya, destruction. So what is the Srishti? Jagat during Srishti Kala, the genesis, it is evolution, manifestation, unfoldment of that Sakti, limitless power of the Lord. That expansion manifestation is called creation. What about what's going on? Okay, Sthiti Dasa, the continuing reality, Jagat, what is it? He's saying no, it's God's own power, it's in its own state, in the expanded, manifest state. That is what is Sthiti. And what about Pralaya? Where does the Jagat go? When everything comes to an end. He's saying, in the moment of destruction, this Jagat then, he's saying this whole God's own cosmic creativity is now ascending to its primeval form. That is very symbolic. So, it's like this. Imagine you have a big star, it becomes a black hole, right? There was a huge star, it becomes a black hole. Sounds a little familiar to the ears, isn't it? So, this whole universe will contract and will vanish into that energy field. Something like that. That Arohanatmaka, it ascends to its own form, which is in a nano form in the Lord of the universe. It's very subtle, we can't even imagine about it. So now we have that Srishti, Sthiti, and Laya. When the power descends a little and manifests, in the moment of descent, expansion, it's called creation. Stability, it's called Sthiti, or whatever you see all around. And destruction, moment of destruction, is essentially its ascendance to its original form, a return to the source. That is what it is. And then in the Spanda Sutra say then the Jagat is essentially a Leela. It's like a game of Atma, that's its Shakti, that supreme consciousness. It's kind of in a state of game, then the Sansara, and it's a state of its meditation in itself. That is Pralaya, if I can put it. I hope I'm not misinterpreting it because many of these things are written here in Sanskrit. So to translate, you have to be very careful. And if you become too free with your words, it's quite possible that you are touching a few sensitive chords and you run the risk of misunderstanding it. And that is the challenge. It's very, very, because these are very subtle ideas. So there is a beautiful thing he's saying in summary. So because of the Ichha Sakti, Jnana Sakti, and Kriya Sakti, Ichha Sakti abhavasitasya vishwasya, because this whole sansara now is visible, tat tat Pramatrapekhyam, pramatri, there is a knower of everything. Apekhyam, kinchid kalam, bahirmukha, bahirmukhatva avbhasana rupa yastitihi. For some time it becomes apparent as an external reality. Chinmaya pramatri vishranti atma cha ye layaha yo layaha. Then same way like a person is active and like a baby, we can take that. The baby is asleep. Then it wakes up, makes a few noises, wants milk and stuff like that, moves around and plays. After some time, it falls asleep again. The mother is happy. She goes to work. Similarly, this whole samsara is a game of the Lord of the universe. And then when he sort of returns to his meditation, everything comes to an end. It's kind of comes to an end. Chinmaya pramatri vishranti atma cha yolayaha tau etau etasya swasakti prachaya eva tattadvedyam hi avhasa manam bilyamanam cha. So it appears and is disappears. What? That supreme creative power of the Lord of the universe. Nija sambit satyatmakam eva. That is Siva Sutra Vimarshini. It's the most powerful commentary on that, Siva Sutras. So he's saying that, look, it's his own creative power through which everything appears and everything disappears. When it takes a physical manifest form, you call it Srishti and Sthiti, and then it returns, then we call it Bilaya. So finally, how do I make sense of this whole universe around me? So in Advaita Vedanta, also in Vaishnava Vedanta or Ramanuja Vishishta Advaita Vedanta, Sakti and Saktiman are no different. But Saktiman, the stage of the Saktiman is also an illusory construct of it, but ultimately there is no Sakti and no Saktiman. Everything is Nirguna Nirakara, that supreme cosmic reality without a name and a form. That is Advaita Vedanta. Here they would say that everything has two aspects, Sakti and Saktiman. Sakti is not independent, but Saktiman is not a joke. Saktiman is not a illusion. Saktiman always exists. His Sakti may or may not manifest. A rich man, there is a rich person. He may or may not drive a very good car. He may not live in a very big bungalow. That doesn't make him poor. Similarly, Lord of the universe may create, may not create. He doesn't cease to be creator. He doesn't cease to have the creative power. He may manifest himself. He may not manifest. That doesn't take away his jnana sakti or ichha sakti. You have the ichha sakti. You may not. It's like you are moving through a mall and you're not buying anything. You went in and you came out. That doesn't mean that you don't have the capacity to desire to buy anything, or you cannot buy anything, or you don't know anything about the products that are around. No, you know all about it. You are the owner of that whole mall, but you're not buying anything. That doesn't take anything away from you. So you have Sakti and Saktiman. And this whole sansara, it will sound very similar to what Ramanujacharya has said. And some people, in fact, say, I don't know how reliable it is, that Ramanujacharya, in fact, spent a little time in Kashmir. And perhaps because he is writing later than some of these Kashmiri philosophers, so perhaps he was inspired by a few ideas in Kashmir. Therefore, he also says that this whole sansara is anga, is a tiny part of the Lord of the universe. And that's what they're saying. Drishyam Sariram. It's his visible body. It's a micro aspect, the tiny aspect of this whole thing. Now you are creating God. And this God is experiencing his whole sansara. And this sansara is he himself. He is playing a game. Then he creates human beings who will do some puja and meditation. And they will meditate on him. Whereas the jivas are not different from Bhagavan. We cannot be outside. We have discussed that many times. If God is omnipresent, omniscient, whatever we know, this is an interesting question to ask yourself. If I'm thinking something stupid, does God know about it? Of course, He does. If I'm having a Bhranti Jnana, a faulty idea of something, I have erroneous perception. Does God know about it? Yes. Does he become the agent for that faulty knowledge? Is his knowledge faulty because I'm part of him? Now, all these ideas and whatever is happening in us is ultimately happening in that boundless domain of consciousness called Ishvara or Brahman. Everything he knows, but he's not involved in anything. And there's a lot of discussion about it in Panchapadika. They're very complicated philosophical questions. So, what he's saying is there is a beautiful solution he's giving here. Bhokteva bhogya bhavena sada sarvatra sangsitaha. Bhokta eva bhogya bhavena. Who is the bhokta? You do puja, Lord is receiving it. Who is doing the bhoga? Bhagavan. And who is doing the puja? You. It's like, to give a more simple, naive example, you draw the picture of a beautiful baby. Let's imagine you are childless. Let's imagine, or you're a student, or you're single, or you're in old age, you can't have another baby. You draw the picture of a beautiful child. Who drew the picture? You yourself. Here, you paint this beautiful baby's face or smile or whatever on a canvas. For God, that canvas is He Himself. So He creates and paints this beautiful baby, and then He loves it. He can give it life, and that baby is His child. And this baby calls Him dad. Look at this whole beautiful thing. The child is He Himself, it's His own creation. Calls Him dad, He's happy. So, bhokteva bhogya bhavena, that baby's beauty and devotion and everything that he's going to enjoy as a dad is not different from him. Bhokteva bhogya bhavena sada sarvatra sangsthitaha. This is a beautiful, powerful insight to this whole reality, where God is everywhere, God is doing everything, God is meditating, God is right now with us doing this satsang. And God is going to distract, and depends on where we are going to go, where we want to involve our mind in. Wherever you want to go is God. Whatever you do is God. So bhokteva bhogya bhavena sada sarvatra sangsthitaha. Ahami idam. The universe, the God, and what He knows, what He creates, what He touches, what He liberates, what He destroys, that's not different from Him. So it's contraction and expansion, it's withdrawal and submission, giving away and taking back. Everything is happening in that unified, unlimited field of consciousness. That's what he's saying. That then there is another Utpala Deva Karika, but I'm not getting into the details because we will be doing the mantras and we'll get into all this. Now you will ask the next question. Now explain to me, what is the difference and relationship between Chit Sakti, that Prakasha Rupa Chit Sakti, which then has Ananda Rupa and Swatyantri and Jnana Sakti, Ichha Sakti, Kriya Sakti, all that Chit Sakti and a Vishwa. What's the relationship? What is the difference? How do I make sense of it? Sansara has come out of it, Vishwa has come out of it. He says, look, that Chit Sakti, which is Prakasha Rupa, that particular Chit Shakti now, having assumed the form of Sansara or Vishwa, which is exact opposite of its own Swarupa, therefore it's called Bhameshwari and Khechari and Goshari. We'll get into all that. So, what he's trying to say is that Paramarthika, that particular thing, which is unlimited, the owner of unlimited knowledge, unlimited will, unlimited action, that supreme agency now appears as a limited agent, restricted agent of limited activity, limited knowledge, and limited will. The unlimited appears as limited because of this whole process of manifestation. The unlimited has become limited. And therefore, That is what is called, and this is actually non different. But because of that manifestation, the unlimited appears like limited. And that is how it assumes kinchit that it knows a little. Kinchit gyatva rupa. It knows not all, but a limited thing. Kinchit kartitva. It's not an unlimited agency. It can do only a few things, either a painter or an engineer or a doctor or a man or a woman, all that. Can't do anything. It wishes. It's constrained by its very form and name and skills and qualities and all that. It has already assumed a form and therefore is limited. So, this particular process of hiding this avheda nishchayatmaka paramarthika swarupa, that everything is one, that it hides, and then bheda nishchaya, bhedavimana, bheda kalpanatmaka, as if there is a duality, as if all of us are different from each other, as if we are interacting with each other. Sounds very familiar. We have done a lot of Vedanta, so it's very easy for us to relate to it. Except that here God is directly doing everything. He is not relying on the concept of Maya, because this whole Maya Sakti is just part of his supreme creative energy. And therefore, so this Sakti, this Chit Sakti then is kind of active in the samsara in different ways. So, Padarth, whatever, reality, you can divide into two aspects. Saktischa Saktimangsheti Padarthadvayam Uchyate. So you have power and you have the powerful. Sakti and Saktiman. You have agency with that creative power and you have that creative power. That's Sakti. Saktayasya Jagat Krishnam. And these Saktis, these powers, are of whom? That's Saktiman, who is the supreme agent. Saktimangsha Maheshwaraha. So if you look at his powers, that has manifested as the samsara. So in our Upanishad, what have we studied in Advaita Vedanta? Mayam tu prakritim vidyan mayinam tu Maheshwaraha. Mayam tu prakritim vidyat. That is what has Trigunatmika. It has become that Maya Shakti has become Trigunatmika Prakriti, that Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, and manifest in different forms and taking different content. Mayinam the Maheshwara, the boss, of course, is Maheshwara. There also you'll see that there's a close proximity and a direct relationship between Kashmiri Saivism and Upanishadic insights. That is why these are all Astika Darsana. So in the Advaita Vedantic commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, Abhinavagupta of Kashmir is kind of included in Shankara Vedanta, is one of the prominent commentators on the non-dualistic interpretation of Bhagavad Gita. Even though the technical tools they use to explain the samsara are radically different, there are some similarities but largely different. So therefore he's saying that chidatma evahi deva antastitam ichhavasat bahihi. That is what is in Prativigya Hridaya. He writes that chidatma, that supreme consciousness, which is internal by its nature, is now manifesting itself as external. So I'll sort of stop here if you have any questions, and then we'll sort of move forward on Saturday. This is I'll tell you, this is very interesting, and some of the great thinkers have also mentioned, and they think that this is kind of supreme manifestation, the most advanced form that Indian philosophy has assumed is in the Kashmiri Saivism. So if you have any questions, or we can take one or two questions, we have 2-3 minutes. Any questions from anyone? No? Okay.
Swamiji,
Yes. Yeah, please go ahead.
Swamiji, just one question. Yeah. Just wanted to know, uh, does the supreme consciousness that we have studied in earlier class, does that supreme consciousness has the power of Maya by which Lord Shiva created, or it
Yeah.
is?
Yeah. So that is what I'm saying, the difference. That in Advaita Vedanta, that supreme consciousness is nirvikara, niskriya, nishala, nirakara, nirguna. It's free from all attributes. Now, in Kashmiri Saivism, that supreme power is attributed powers. So in Advaita Vedanta, powers also exist, and that is in Maya. And Maya is Ashrita in Brahman, but they will say then there'll be two, Maya and Brahman. No, that is Advaita Vedanta, no Dvaita. Brahman alone is true. Then Maya is kind of manifests out of him, and that duality is created in whole samsara. There is a bit of explanatory gap over there, which Kashmiri Saivism is trying to solve by not getting into that whole conundrum of elaborate philosophical explanations, by saying simply that no, the absolute consciousness has all the powers to create the samsara. It doesn't have to get into any whole concept of Maya, that how Brahman becomes Ishvara and then he creates. Then the Upanishadic statements are interpreted by Shankaracharya that he creates Hiranyagarbha and Panchatanmatras, and these Hiranyagarbha, then he creates things. Okay, he does Sankalpa and Aham Bahushyam Prajaya, then whole creation starts. No, he doesn't get into all these ideas. He says, no, directly speaking, Lord Shiva, with the Supreme Self, he has the powers, the knowledge, the will, and the power of action to create anything he wants the way he wants. But this whole creation is not free from rules. These rules are set by him. So these are two different ways of looking at it, and we'll take it further when we meet next.
Can I ask you for a clarification?
Please.
Yeah, yeah. So it looks like, and tell me if I'm right or wrong, that in Advaita Vedanta you can know Brahman by almost bypassing Maya, by just doing, Sravan Manan Nididhyasan. Whereas it looks like in this Kashmiri Shaivism, Maya is the one that is holding the key to the knowledge of what Shiva is. Is that true or no?
You're almost absolutely there. You're kind of dot on there. This is the most interesting aspect, and therefore you'll find that Ishvara Anugraha is a powerful concept here, and that devotion, that thing, these are all upasanas and everything are given a lot of importance. So also in Ramanujacharya's philosophy of Vishishtadvaita, that they say that okay, saranagati, prapatti, these are the ideas. So this is a very interesting school of thought as we move forward, and you are absolutely there, dot on. So we'll take it forward when we meet in the next class. So we'll do the Santi mantras now. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sri Guru Namaha Hari Om Tat Sat.